Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more. Welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Projects podcast. So today, joining me is Gregory Scott. He's an author and coach, so author of the book Masculine in Relationships. And I'm excited for you to share more about the book itself and the process of understanding the masculine and more so relationships here in Australia. And I'm sure the statistics would have similar impacts all around the world, that relationship breakdown is a huge cause behind male suicide. And it's definitely a topic that our audience it has experienced. I'm sure everyone's experienced a relationship breakdown at some point, but understanding how us as men, we can take ownership for who we are as individuals to give ourselves the best shot at a thriving relationship. And there's no better person than you, Gregory, to have you on the show to talk more about the book that you've written and give us your own experience and the tips and tricks along the way. So welcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lachlan, great to be here. I'm excited to do my first podcast with an Aussie.
Yes, I'm excited that I am the first one. So take us back. So the book was released at the end of 2019. 2020 was a pretty whirlwind year for everyone, even 2021 so far. But how did, what kicked off this book for you?
Yeah, this book comes out of personal experience. I often will say that my motivation was failure, and it was failure in a marriage that ended a little over a decade ago, and it was painful. The way that it ended was painful for me, and it really lit a fire under me to figure out, there's got to be a better way. At the end of that relationship, I did not feel in my power. I felt emasculated, quite frankly. And it was not a place that I ever thought I would get to, but it happens, even to the best of intention of men, even men who consider themselves good men, who provide for their families and don't go out and do crazy things. The breakdown of a marriage can happen when you lose connection, when you lose that what's called polarity in the relationship. And I didn't understand what those things meant. And so the last, say, 12 years for me has been a journey, both studying with some of the big teachers in this field, as well as experientially being in relationship with a very powerful, but also very feminine woman. And learning from the masters, learning from my teachers, and learning in real life. What works, what opens the feminine and what doesn't, what creates more success in relationship and what doesn't. And over the years, I just began to see principles and dynamics, and I would codify those in notes to myself. And suddenly I had a really big pile of notes that I said, I could probably organize this into a book. And then it took me about 4 years. But over that time, yielded what you have now and what brings us here to have this discussion, the book.
Awesome. And what was that experience like writing the book? Obviously, you've had a lot of mentors, you have the experience, and then really trying to, I guess, in a way, I know you would have had detail, but then summarizing it into some pretty powerful points within a book would be just thinking about it, I would find that extremely challenging. So how was that for you personally?
Well, the writing process is torturous. The publishing process is exhilarating. It's agony trying to wrestle a swirling picture down into coherent principles, and then to organize those principles into a larger framework that actually makes sense. But it's something I like to do, even if it's painful. And I feel really proud of how I've been able to organize it in a way that I think makes sense to a lot of guys. That's the feedback I consistently get. It's just like, wow, I feel like this book was written directly for me. because it matches so many men's experiences. And I think that's what men forget, that we are all in this together. We have the same insecurities. We have the same ways we keep screwing up our relationships. We have the same complaints from our women, and we're not in this alone. And there's a shared brotherhood of the challenges that we face as men to be good emotional partners with a really powerful, high quality woman. And it's been fun to be one of the voices in that conversation.
It's exciting. And we're actually reading your book in 2 months' time in our book club within our Inner Circle community. And when I was chatting to a few of the lads about your book and the work that you're doing, unfortunately, it's a common thing that's going on for a lot of our core members, divorces and relationship breakdowns. And there are a few of the guys who are, a couple of years on the other side of that, which they've been able to help from their experience with the guys who are currently going through it. And it's heartbreaking to see, but also for a lot of these guys, because they understand the role that they had to play in it, from not being, I guess, intentional and not understanding how they can better influence and influence the relationship. You were saying before, first and foremost, what I'd love to sort of know is more about the masculine and feminine, because there would be people listening right now and go, I have no idea what that means. Like, masculine is big macho, but I'm sure there's more to it. And how do we understand what that is for us, but also then the polarity you touched on, understanding what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, I mean, the short version, the very short version of masculine and feminine is the masculine is a very directive energy. It's creating direction and clarity, movement. And the feminine is responsive and expressive. So it's the feminine at an energy level is responding to the directionality or lack thereof from the masculine. It's and expressing its response to that. So you have directive and responsive. But I think maybe at a deeper level, the book is organized around what I call the masculine blueprint. So it's a 3-part blueprint, which I feel is what describes what a good masculine core would look like in a man. Element 1 is respond versus react. So this is the quality of a man who's very grounded. He's not reactive. He's the kind of guy that you can just tell he lives from moment to moment out of choice rather than reactivity. And there's a quality of stillness in him, but he's still engaged with the world. So that's the first element of what I consider to be a masculine core. The second element is provide structure. So this is clarity about what you want, what you need. This is your preferences, your needs, and your boundaries. And what I always say is you can't lead somebody else unless you know what you want. So you have to have clarity for yourself and also bring clarity and structure for the world around you. And we can dig into that more. The third element of what I consider to be a masculine core is you create safety in the context of your relation, physical, financial, and emotional safety, which is the one that I talk about the most in the book. In my view, there's nothing more important than a feeling of trust and safety in a woman to determine how much she's going to be open to you or not open to you. So that's a masculine core, and as manifested in a person. Feminine is a little bit harder, and I don't try to claim to be the guy that can be the authority on the feminine. I just don't. I know what I like. I know what's enticing. A woman who's in her heart, a woman who's expressive, a woman who's got a great radiant smile. She's got a laugh. She's got a playfulness to her. She's got a very responsive sexually. She's the steward of our connection. She's really keeping me in my heart and keeping me open, or at least inspiring me to stay open and heart connected in the relationship. That's in the lineage that I study on. That's one of the feminine imperatives, is to be the steward of the connection between the two of us. So those are some of the qualities of the feminine. I mean, we could go on and on, but I think just those are some of the qualities. And then, when those two match, it's pretty magical, quite frankly. The woman that I'm with she's very powerful, very strong woman, and she's got a really great feminine side as well. And when I bring my fullness and she flowers into her full radiance, I mean, it's amazing and very enticing and compelling for me. Now, the flip side of that is if I play small and if I get defensive and, I'm not grounded, like she also responds to that as well. And it can get a little difficult. And that's just the occupational hazard of being with a radiant woman. So anyway, I'll pause the monologue there, but that's kind of just a little bit of an overview of masculine and feminine.
That was incredible. Thanks for sharing that. And so in regards to something you touched on before, the emotional safety element and aspect, that's something that's really foreign to myself. And I'm definitely sure there's a lot of men out there who are in a similar boat. How can we identify it and how can we really look to improve that within our relationship? Because obviously it's a key part, as you mentioned, and obviously one, not having the awareness for myself and for those who are listening, but how can we really nurture that and look to create that emotional safety within the relationship?
Yeah, there's it's really two primary components. One is that and can express your own emotions, and that you can make space for hers. Like if I had to really boil it down to its simplest components, it's that. And I think we would need to look at those separately. Your woman needs to feel emotionally connected to you as a man. Like if she were to cut you off from sex for a year, or really any appreciable amount of time, it's the same feeling for her when you don't share your emotions with her, where you don't show her your inner state. And so, I've been in a relationship situation where I was upset about something my woman did. It didn't seem like we could ever get it worked out. And so I kind of stayed angry and I stayed resentful about it. And she could just feel the resentment, even though I would claim over and over again, I'm not mad. Because I felt like we'd argue about it long enough and it wasn't worth it, but it was still in me and it was seeping out and she was in pain because she could feel it and I wouldn't admit it. That's a very easy way to be like, baby, I'm pissed at you. I'm angry about this. I don't like what happened, and to be able to just be out with that. Or, if you're suffering at work in some way and you're feeling maybe insecure about your performance at work on a project or something, but you're kind of like playing the big tough guy and be like, yeah, I'm just, things are going well at work but I'm fine. Like, I don't care what that guy says. She's like, no, you feel like you're feeling insecure about it and you feel a little scared about your reputation or your job or something. It's like, just admit what's actually going on inside. And as guys, we're pretty damn good at shutting that down, even to ourselves. So usually the first person we have to share it with is ourselves. And the second person is then with her. And that's a cultivated skill. It's something I work with my clients on a lot. Now, the flip side of that, actually, I'll pause for a second there, Lachie, and if you want to comment. I don't want to just monologue the whole time.
No, I was just going to say, like the reference that you gave, or the comparison around, for a lot of guys within our community talk about their lack of intimacy or sex and how they feel like that loss of connection, and then comparing that to us not being emotionally available is a similar experience for them. And that for me is like, wow, that sucks. And you can see why it's worthwhile.
Yeah, it's like stepping on their air hose.
Yeah. And it shows the importance of probably what you're about to talk about now, but just one, understanding how to have those conversations with ourselves and be honest with what's, emotionally how we're feeling, and then having the courage to speak up within the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. It's admitting the stuff that we're ashamed of. Like, maybe sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough for you. Like, I feel like you might be disappointed in me and sort of secretly, drawing away from me. I don't know, like it's stuff like that we don't admit to our women, in those times of insecurity. And it's really important. And I had something I was going to say about that, but I'll skip it. Here's what I would say. This is what it was. Guys, if your woman is getting irritable and critical and not that open to sex, it's probably because the emotional connection is a little kink. And half of that equation is probably because you're not sharing enough of yourself. And I've been on this journey for a while, and my woman she inspires the best of me, but it's not always easy because she's not going to settle for me half-assing it in terms of showing what's going on the inside for me. So it's a prime determinant of her openness. Now, the second part of that I referred to earlier is making space for her emotions. So, if she's upset and she's right, and you just shut down, like you withdraw by pulling out of the conversation, or you kind of go stony, you're like there, but not there. She's going to be like, oh, it's going to be painful for her because you're not available for her emotions. The granddaddy of them all that most guys do on a regular basis is defensiveness. So she comes with some emotional expression, some upset, and then we get defensive. We try to explain, we go to that informational level. So that's what defensiveness is. Like she comes with emotion and we respond with information, and it's like two different languages. Because she's in an emotional state, she cannot receive this new information you're trying to give her. She can't hear it. So you might as well be speaking French to her. So defensiveness is another way that men often operate, and it's just a dagger in our women's heart because then they say, I can't share my upset. All he does is try to change my mind and tell me not the way to feel that I already feel. And that's one of the ways that women feel very emotionally unsafe, because they start sharing less and less of themselves because they don't feel like it'll be received. And that's when also the relationship starts to really shut in on itself, when she feels like she can't share who she really is, which includes all of her emotional expression, which can be messy at times. So that's a little bit about both sides of the coin on emotional connection with your woman.
That's incredible. And I was relating to a lot of that. I can see in my own life where there'll be times where I get defensive or I try to solve the problem and it never ends up well for me. But also, I just see it play out so often where they, stop talking more and more and more. And then us blokes, and from a lot of the guys that we speak with in our community, that we feel like we're doing something wrong, even though it's just, technically we are. We're just not listening. We're not allowing the emotional connection to strengthen. So I think it's something, and I'm really excited to have this going through our community in a few weeks, just so a lot of blokes can share their own experiences with how it plays out in their own life, which is pretty cool. Another thing you talk about a lot is the importance of obviously leadership within the relationship. And from my own personal experience, Greg, within a relationship, because of my own past experiences where I've been aggressive and a lot like this when I'm younger, I find it very hard to be assertive and to almost have a level of leadership within the relationship, because I don't want to be dominating and I don't want that to come across. And that's something I'm personally fearful of in that space. And I'm sure there's many people who may feel similar with that. So how do you sort of identify the right leadership? And also, obviously, it's different relationship to each relationship, but obviously it's important. How do we look to strengthen that skill within the relationship?
Yeah. You just described, Lachie, the kind of the conundrum for the modern man is where the pendulum is swung the other way, we're a little bit afraid to assert ourselves for fear of being, as you said, domineering. And so we hold back and we kind of say, well, what do you want, baby? Just tell me what you want. We'll do that and it'll all be good. And of course, that kind of behavior over time is really uninspiring to our women. And here's what I say. Leadership in this context is about clarity plus inclusion. So what that means is, baby, here's what I think we should do. Whether it's as simple as where we should go to dinner, whether it's a little more complex of where we should go on a vacation. If we're having relationship problems, where could we, what would be our plan to address that? We're going to go to therapy. We're going to do this. We're going to have a weekly talk. Like, you bring your vision for what the next step is. And then you simply say, how does that land for you, baby? So you're bringing clarity, but then you're including her. What you're doing is you're just priming the pump. You're not coming empty-handed and saying, well, what do you think we should do, baby? It's very different from that. It is, you actually take the time to think through what you think is the right path. And then you bring that to her. And then she's got three options. She can say, yes, exactly what you said. I love it. She could say, well, I like this, but I would do this part differently. Or she could say, no effing way. She's got those options. And you as a man, if she chooses A, you're like, sweet, I'm obviously my instincts are good. If she chooses B, then you are solid enough in yourself to not be all rigid about what you said. And you are able to say, oh, okay, you know what? I do see how that would work better for you. And you're flexible enough to fold that into the plan. And if she says no, you are also strong enough to understand, you'd want to understand why and what needs to be met. But then you're able to back off and adjust and say, okay, you didn't want to go get Mexican tonight? How about this Japanese place that you talked about? And then, of course, that's the simplistic example, but it gets a lot more complicated than that in other situations in life. But you're strong enough to be able to deal with rejection as well. So that's how you lead without being a domineering asshole. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that obviously requires consistent daily action. And as you mentioned, having the conversation, but also bouncing off your partner just to I guess, stay within, if you're looking at 10-pin bowling, within the bumpers. So you're not going too far off track and becoming too domineering.
Well, there's some comments I want to make in this. So the first thing you have to do is really go through the process of starting to tune your inner radar on what you need and want. Like most men's radars are pointed at her or outward to the world. In fact, if you're a pleaser, your radar is turned up to 11, and it's overly powerful at scanning. What do other people want? So I'll just give it to them and make everybody happy. So the first thing you have to do is go through the process of really turning that radar first on yourself, really getting in touch with your inner needs. That's actually a muscle that is pretty atrophied for most men. And so that's a pretty long process to be able to do that. And so that's one of the first things you have to do. Now, at the same time, it's going to sound like I'm contradicting myself. You also have to be pretty damn attuned to your woman. If you come with a plan that is so out of sync with what you should know, with what she likes and needs, that's not good either. So you've got to be attuned to her needs such that you know them well enough to fold them into the plan that you're bringing to offer her. So it's both attunement to oneself, but it's also attunement to her. And then you as the leader are wrapping all that together into your offering of clarity for her. So both those things are very, very important.
It's complete ownership there, being able to look outside yourself, but also looking within yourself. People pleasing, though, is something you touched on, and even let's just say partner pleasing is a discussion we were having last week, and it's something I struggle with a lot of. The blokes struggle with, as well as around always putting other people's needs first. So that process of obviously gaining clarity around what you want, and then obviously within the relationship, just touching on that, as you mentioned, being in tune with what your partner wants and her needs as well, so you can sort of marry them both together to find that sweet spot.
Yeah, that's where you work magic. When you know her well enough, the plan you bring, and she's like, oh, yes, that's totally, it totally works for me. She feels, not only have you shown your leadership qualities, and not only have you created a good plan, but you've made her feel seen. She's like, my man gets me. That's going to create emotional safety right there. So you see how these things all weave together. When she feels understood and gotten by you, that's a deep sense of satisfaction to the feminine. The feminine wants to be seen and understood.
And do you feel the emotional safety part is something that's really at the forefront of neglection within a relationship? There's, trying to be a protector and a provider. I focus a lot on that financial safety, and then physically, it's also an area of focus for myself. But that emotional part, do you feel like for most men and men that you work with, it's an area that really lacks for them?
Yeah, most guys I work with are they've got their shit together professionally. It's not everybody, but most of them do. So the provider role, check. Most of them have that. Protector role, yeah, we don't sort of, that's not quite as relevant these days. You need to be able to protect, but rarely do you get attacked or mugged or anything like that. It's the emotional safety that most guys have no clue. They have no clue about how they're truly, really hurting their women. And that's what I try to work with my clients on, is really understanding the ways that they're hurting their women, and try to, help them develop their skills in that area.
Is there any commonalities or patterns that you see in ways in which we could be hurting our partners by not being emotionally available?
Defensiveness is the one I see all the time.
Yep.
I had one guy, his favorite phrase was whenever his wife would complain, he'd always say, "Now, wait a minute," and then he would go to explain why she shouldn't feel that way. And they actually separated. As hard as we tried together, he couldn't change, and he couldn't let go of saying that stupid phrase. So yeah, it's that going informational when she's at that emotional level, which is one of the most common sins that I see men make in relationship.
Yep. That's crazy. I saw a post you wrote a few weeks ago, and this ties into to really summarize a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, is that connection is impossible for emotionally closed men. And that would, I'd imagine, extend outside of just your intimate relationships to all relationships in the world around you. For a lot of us, we are walking through life, and I was walking through life for a very, very long time, not aware at all. I'd imagine everyone listening to this has some level of awareness to it. But how do we learn to really start opening up and connecting better? Like, what are some actionable things that we can do to improve connection?
Well, we've talked about some of them, so I think that we've been able to cover some of this ground. It's revealing what's going on inside of you is such an easy way to open up connection with our woman. When you're, guys don't like to admit it, but when we're scared or when we're sad or when we're feeling alienated or not good enough in some way, like that's all the kind of stuff you can actually share with your woman. Now, I think what's important here is for me to touch on, there is a masculine way to share your emotions, and there's also a non-masculine way to share your emotions. So this is important as we go into this. If you share your emotions in a way that is your you kind of have a victim energy, and if she's involved in the situation, if you are either explicitly or energetically saying, "I need you to do something different in order for me to feel okay," that's where it's not going to feel good to her. And if you kind of go on and on and on and on, like that's not going to feel good to her. The way to express your emotions is as a matter of fact. It's like, I'm pissed at you. And period. Like when you made that comment to my family, I was fucking pissed at you, and I still am. Period. Now that's a pretty intense emotion, being pissed off. So we've kind of gone to the extreme, and it's your cross to bear. Your feelings are your cross to bear. So you don't put them out there in a way that you're whining about it. You're playing the victim. You did this to me, and I need you to do something different for me to be okay. You state them succinctly. 2 sentences is what I always recommend. And it's just a matter of fact, like, yeah, I just feel really hurt right now.
There's no beating around the bush with that, though. Like, I've even thinking about, there's certain conversations that are scary to have because I'm worried about what's going to happen between the stimulus between that is what scares me. Within that, but at the end of the day, that conversation has to be had.
Yes. Well, and look, let's talk about the nuances that can make this easier, less scary, which is what you said. Number one, you're giving no signal that you need her to do anything for you to feel better. And totally lost my train of thought of what the second point was going to be, Lockie.
That's okay.
Yeah, it'll come to me, of course. But yeah, you just, here's what it is. Thanks for letting me stall there for a second. You don't have to justify your feelings. You don't justify it in your words, and you don't have mentally, you don't feel like, is she going to be okay with this? These are statements of fact. How you feel in the moment is a statement of fact, and it's inarguable. Now, the more story you add to it, then you start to trip yourself up because she can argue your story. She cannot argue the fact that, yeah, I feel hurt right now. I didn't say I feel hurt by you. I didn't give her the story of why I feel hurt. I didn't, go on and on. I feel hurt right now. Actually, one of the ways that I express hurt is I'll just say, ouch. Like if my woman gets nasty, like mad, and she says something mean just to be mean, I'll just say, ouch. That's it. And I just stay very present. And that's the last element that I think that men need to understand. I can say, I'm pissed at you, I'm sad, I'm hurt, ouch, whatever. And I'm still right here. You can feel me breathe. I'm fully present. Ouch. I don't storm out of the room or stare at the ground. I'm right here and I'm expressing my emotions. So keep it simple. Don't play the victim. Stay present. Don't put a story on it. That's how you could express your emotions in a very masculine way. And so that's an exercise I take my clients through. I try to find something that they're withholding, and then we work on not only how to say it, but also to say it in a way that's very connected at a deeper level within them. And that's a real skill that most men need to cultivate. And I help them with that.
It's incredible. And as you listed those things off, I was like, I always feel the need to justify why I feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And often, as you mentioned, that does take you away from being present, because you're like, oh, is this a real valid reason or not? Or how will they interpret it? As opposed to just saying, this is literally how I feel. I love, that's a huge thing for me to take away. But even, I know when you can be reactive, you might storm out of the room, or you may say something that you're later going to regret, and learning how to, I guess, manage being reactive and learn to be responsive, which you sort of touched on earlier, but it's such an important thing within the relationships to learn to be responsive and know yourself and control yourself and be present, because I'm guilty of it, and I've not been present in certain situations. I'm always thinking of the next thing or how what I say could be interpreted, and it takes me away from the moment, as you were touching on. Then when you say ouch, you can feel that you're there.
Yeah. And ultimately, women respond less to what you say, but how you say it. It's like, can they feel you when you say it? And so when you kind of defend and justify and blather on, like, they can't feel that. That's all a bunch of information. But if you just say, ouch, like, boom. If you speak that from a deep place, they're going to feel it. It's going to have way more impact.
And by learning to harness the masculine within ourselves and within the relationship, does that enable our partners to feel more feminine, to obviously, create a stronger polarity, as you touched on earlier? Obviously, is it better to have a stronger polarity, or is there any wrong or right with that, or in terms of that?
There's no wrong or right. It's all about what you and she want. And some women want to be in the masculine, and they maybe want you in your masculine, or maybe they want you to be more pliable. Like, there could be all kinds of combos. So there's no right or wrong. But for a man that chooses and aspires to be in his masculine core, and for a woman that chooses and aspires to relax into her feminine side, this is what we want. And so as the man in that equation, respond versus react makes you more still, more grounded. That polarizes her to be more flowy and expressive. Like, if I get really still, you will find her magically able to be more expressive. Now, whatever form that takes. Now, if you're the expressive one, let's say, you talk a lot and you gesticulate, look at my face, and I'm in my feminine. She's probably going to get more still, because it's called, you're polarizing her one way or the other. And so that's where, when I get more still and grounded, my woman gets more expressive. And that's what I love. When I have more clarity and direction, she knows that I've got it. So she can relax into her feminine side even further. And then when I create safety for her, physical, financial, and emotional, she can further relax into her feminine side and just be like, okay, I feel safe, and he's got this. And now I can be more of my flowy, feminine, radiant self. And most guys love their women in that energy, and even if they don't know it, like eventually when they finally get with a woman who's got a radiant side, like, it's pretty awesome. It's a great feeling to be with such a woman.
It's generally how, from my experience, how most relationships start is from the female perspective. They're always in their element, their energy, and it's a beautiful thing. And I absolutely love the masculine blueprint around reactive versus response, and then having a clarity and a plan in place, and then creating that safety. Like, it's three simple, obviously, and this is a broad spectrum. You obviously go deeper in the book and with your clients, but it just makes it easy going through my head to achieve something like that, to go, cool, I can learn to be responsive. I can create a plan and get clear on who I am and what I want the relationship to look like. And you touched on boundaries before as well, like even setting some boundaries around, I guess, would that be in the context of what you're prepared to tolerate within the relationship and how things work like that? Is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely is. It's part of provide structure, because it's your own clarity about what doesn't work for you. And when you don't provide that clarity, number one, she has no idea. So she might run right over that boundary, having no idea that it exists. And then that'll either cause a fight because you'll react, or you'll stuff it and get resentful. And then she's just going to feel that too, So you really are doing the two of you a disservice by not setting boundaries. And the trick is you don't have to set boundaries like an asshole. It doesn't have to be like smacking her in the face with your boundary. You can have boundaries of like, baby, this is what I can live with and this is what I can't. And I just know that for myself. You have full freedom to make your choices about this. But one thing that, like, I can't be in a relationship where you flirt with somebody else. My woman flirts kind of shamelessly with other people. It's not okay with me. And, if that's part of your makeup and that's who you need to be, then, you have full freedom to make that choice. But I know for me, that doesn't work. That's one boundary that you might set. Another could be, I need to go to the gym 3 days a week. And I know that we've got kids. I'll work with you how to put it in, but this is not negotiable for me. I have to stay physically fit. Otherwise I go crazy. Is this something that we can agree on? So you could be very loving and in contact and set boundaries. And so very few men are actually good at that. It's something that needs practice.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing. And that goes back to what you were saying earlier around knowing your own needs and wants, and setting the boundaries for yourself, but finding that time and place to really express what those boundaries are. Because a boundary can't be broken if you don't express it or if you don't communicate it to your partner. So that's where having those conversations. It sounds like, I know when I started wanting this whole self-improvement and understanding myself journey, it sounds like it's a lot of work, and it is, and it can be confronting, and there seems like there's a whole heap of rules and things that have to happen. But if we look at, divorce rates and relationship breakdown and suicide statistics, these things, while it seems like a lot, they only need to be done once, really. If you identify and establish the boundaries, if you establish and continue, obviously, daily to work on the small things, so the financial safety, the emotional safety, the love and connection, then it flourishes an incredible relationship. But because so many of us are, and I'm speaking from self here, that sometimes I'm scared to express my wants, needs, and desires, that they keep getting run over. Those boundaries that I haven't set, I haven't expressed, keep getting run over. And as you mentioned, you do become a little bit bitter. You do become a little bit reactive and resentful. And I've only got myself to blame, really.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and unfortunately, resentment is such a connection killer. It's like the silent killer of connection, really, because it's so under the surface. So yeah, what I say is just start small, guys. Start small. You got to break the seal on these things. So start with a small one and really bring it to your woman, and don't justify. Get clear what you need, offer it, start small, and then you can grow over time. As you see, it's like, oh, I did that and it was okay. Like, she was actually grateful for that. Wow, that's a new experience that I'll factor into my nervous system as I go forth.
It's incredible. I've got two questions for you, and one is one that I never prep anyone, but don't get scared. I think you'll absolutely knock this one out of the park. Is what's your definition of being a man?
You said being a man?
Yes.
Well, it very much is defined by the blueprint. So I think let's just take that as a given. But the part that doesn't come out is bravery. And it's in things big and small. It's not just like punching a guy in the face that threatens your family. Sometimes it's speaking your truth, like we were talking about, the boundaries. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is speak your hard truth, even if it's not going to feel good to the other person. That's bravery, And I think a lot of guys, they lose that bravery. They might be brave in other domains of their life, but in the relationship. So to be a man is the blueprint's part of that, but it's bravery is sort of an ingredient quality that's sprinkled through. Takes care of his own, which I think is a lot about great safety. It's encompassed in that, but taking care of your own. And whether that be protecting her or protecting the children, or giving her your truth, or tough love with your children, like that also is standing up for them. So I think those are some of the qualities that come up for me.
Absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing that. And finally, I'd love for you to share or give the book a bit of a plug where people can buy it. And really, obviously, if everyone who's listened to this is probably already on Amazon, if it's available, and getting that through there, because we'll be reading it in September.
Yeah.
And where can everyone else find you on social medias, website, all of those links?
Yeah. So you guys are in luck because it just opened up in Australia a couple of weeks ago. So it's now available. I think on paperback is where it wasn't available before, and it is now. So I'm excited about that because I think there's a ready and willing audience. I think a lot of these principles are universal. Find it on Amazon. For the guys that I know are going to ask, yes, I'll have an Audible version, but it's not going to be for a few months. I've got some other projects. GSYoungblood.com is the website. If you go there, get on the mailing list so I can alert you for new things that are coming up. Like, for instance, I have an embodiment practice study course coming out on video in a couple of weeks. And so that's something that you can tap into. Got a dark sexual energy workshop that will be manifesting near the end of the summer. And there'll be some other online courses that I've already filmed. I just need to package up. And then on the website, you can find out about coaching, and both group and one-on-one coaching. And then a great place to get content for me is on Instagram, GS Youngblood, MIR, masculine in relationship. And I've got videos on there and various quotes and just different kinds of content for you. So I think those are the primary places to find me. Oh, I also have a Facebook group, a discussion group called the Masculine in Relationship. And, guys get on there and they post questions about what's up for them. And sometimes I answer, sometimes the other guys answer.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing all of those. And they'll be available in the show notes, guys. So just scroll on down. The hard work's heavy lifting's done. Not that it's hard to Google stuff now, but that's brilliant. But I really want to thank you for your time. And also for writing the book. Like, I think people often underestimate the amount of work that goes into writing the book or your book, but all books, and the experience, the blood, sweat, and tears, the money that you've invested to learn from the best and then put it into your own words it blows my mind. So I'm super grateful to have had you on the show, and I've taken literally 2 pages worth of notes, and I'm looking forward to re-listening this. But thank you for everything that you're doing for men, because it's such an important thing, and I highly encourage everyone listening to go check out all the links below, because we just scratched the surface. We'd be doing probably a 40-hour podcast if we went into depth with everything. Yeah. And I think
it's a 300-page book, so we could talk for a while. Yeah.
And I think
and one ask, Lachie, is just, hey guys, if you like the book, do an Amazon review. Those really help me. And also click the button on some of the other good reviews that says helpful, and you can leave comments on them. It actually helps those rise higher in the search rankings. And so it's very helpful for me, for anybody that wants to give back in that way.
Awesome. We'll definitely be encouraging the men to do that. But thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing. And we look forward to sharing this with as many people as possible.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Lachie. That's fun.
Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachie Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.